The recording started. Why infra is required? First of all, can one of you unmute and tell me why infra is required? Sharad?
Yes, Shankar. I mean, infrastructure, it actually refers to the components that actually supports the software application and services, right? So in that case, to run the application and services, and for the availability and the reliability, we need the infrastructure before we form the services. So to make the things automation, we need the infrastructure as code initially.
Okay, that's correct. Why infra is required? In order to run application or services, to make everything running, right? To deploy, you need a basic infrastructure. That is network, compute, storage, and database. These are the four fundamental services. The way to create infrastructure is not manual, use Terraform. The code that you write, it cannot be manually executed every time. How it has to be executed? It has to be executed in an automated way. When we say automated way, what's the first thing comes into picture? CI/CD. In order to achieve CI/CD, what are the different tools that are required? For infra scripting, you require Terraform. Correct? In order to collaborate, what is required? Git is required. Git and GitLab. This is a repository, that is server. Git is your client. Okay. And for CI/CD, you require GitLab CI feature. Okay. Any doubts on this particular discussion?
No.
No, Shankar.
Everybody is clear, right?
No, sir. All
Yes,
case.
Ganesh.
All case.
Good. So infra code is written by Terraform. Collaboration we can do using Git and GitLab repository, Git client, and automation can be done using CI/CD, that is using GitLab CI. Okay. We are moving further, and I would like to ask you Terraform architecture. So this is the most fundamental thing which is required. What is Terraform architecture? How does it look like? Say you are the infra DevOps engineer. What is the first thing that you need to do? Apart from installing Terraform, apart from configuring basic things for Terraform, what are the first thing that you will do? Start creating .tf files. Is it correct? Any doubts on this? You will create it in your Git bash, and using Git, what you can do? You can push to GitLab. That is to store the code. Correct? Any doubts on this?
No.
How do you create resources in AWS cloud? Say your Terraform code is ready. Your Terraform code is ready. What do you do after that? Your Terraform workflow. Can somebody tell me what is the Terraform workflow? What are the different stages?
Terraform init, Terraform validate, and Terraform plan, Terraform plan, apply, sorry, and destroy in the last. Yeah.
Okay. Can I run man? Sorry, can I run destroy automatically?
Sorry.
Can I run destroy stage automatically?
I think it should be done manually.
Correct. It should be manually, right? It should be manually done because creation is something you want automated way. Correct? That is what is the purpose. This is also kind of a automation done, but the execution part is manual. That means you need to decide when you want to really destroy everything. Then only you will be able to destroy whenever it is required, instead of running it in an automated way. What happens if you run it in an automated way? It creates the resources and destroys the resources. So there is no purpose of creating the resources. So is it clear now?
Yes, Shankar, clear.
Okay. Say you have put everything in your GitLab. And you want to configure CI/CD. So what is the first requirement in order to run your CI/CD pipeline? Any clue, any other guesses? Especially Ganesh and Gopi and Sharath. What is the minimum requirement in order to run your pipeline? Any clue? I mean, any guesses you can just give it a try. Sharath?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe the version control systems.
We already have GitLab repository. The version is already maintained.
Okay, I mean, we have to use the CI/CD tools like Jenkins, AWS.
Okay, true. That's fine. I mean, we are using GitLab CI. That is nothing but a CI/CD tool. The first thing is the configuration that needs to be done. Configuration that needs to be done to integrate your GitLab to GitLab CI. So integration must be done in order to connect your GitLab to GitLab CI. For that, you require .gitlab -ci.yml file. Okay. Any more guesses what this file would contain? The Terraform workflow for sure. Is this clear? Is this understandable for you? Ganesh, Gopi.
Yeah, yes.
So this will contain init, plan, apply. So I'm missing validate for now. It's okay. Apply, destroy, apply and destroy. How can we call this as? Can we call this as jobs, stages? Can we call this as stages? Correct. So in your CI/CD, in your pipeline, especially we call it as a pipeline. Why it is called a pipeline? Any idea? It goes through a particular sequence, and at the end you get some output. It goes through different stages here and there. Final output you get it as your infrastructure created. So it goes through different stages: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. In order for you to understand the stage, you say that it is a job 1, which is job 2, job 3, job 4, like that. Okay, is it clear? Do you want me to repeat?
Yeah, Shankar, as you said, once the code is ready, we need to push it to the GitLab, right? I mean, the integration part from GL to GI, GitLab CI.
Yeah.
So when you say .gitlab-ci.yml file is required, what exactly it means, that part?
Okay. See, simply you're trying to configure your manual execution to become automated execution. Telling that, for that you need to have one more explanation. That is, say, as a DevOps engineer, what do? You push your code to GitLab. Correct? The activity is like add, commit, and push. This is a sequence of Git workflow. Any doubts on this particular Git workflow? Git add, Git commit, Git push?
No,
Shankar.
No, clear, right? So, say for example, say you are waking up in the morning around 4 o'clock to catch a particular train or bus or any other event. What do? You set an alarm. The alarm rings, you get triggered, right? What is it? You have to wake up and then go for a particular event. Similarly, when you want to do a CI/CD pipeline, there has to be a trigger. What is the trigger here? When you are supposed to run the CI/CD pipeline? When there is a code change. What is that? When there is a code change. How you will understand there is a code change? Based on the push. Based on the git push. And also based on the git merge. So we'll not go very deep into merge. We'll just go with a push. So you need a trigger. The trigger is your push action. As a result of trigger, as a result of push, you get triggered. As a result of trigger, you run CI/CD. For running the CI/CD, you require, what is that file which is required? .gitlab-ci.yml with the stages and jobs. That is nothing but Terraform workflow. I'll just put it in a diagram. So you're doing a push. That is a trigger. You are pushing it to GitLab, and then you have CI CD configured using .gitlab-ca.yml, which is there in your repository. This is there in your repository on your root file system. That is nothing but it must be under for you. It is default -vpc is your working directory or your current repository. In that you will have a gitlab-ca.yml file that is with pages and jobs, also variables. We'll talk about why variables, what are variables here, and some keywords. That also we'll talk about it. Okay. So when you push your information to GitLab, you have CI/CD configured, the CI/CD integrated that reads the GitLab CI YML file and that runs the pipeline. And the pipeline actually creates resources in AWS. Is it clear? Do you want to have another explanation on this? Feel free to ask.
No, Shankar, it's clear.
Clear, right? Gopi,
Yeah.
Ganesh?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I'm going one step back. Okay, just try to answer this one. Say you are writing code in Git Bash. That is nothing but your Git code that you are pushing to GitLab to store the code. No CI. Okay, CI is not configured. How do you run the pipeline? I mean, how do you run Terraform workflow? How do you run the Terraform workflow? Your .tf files are ready. So you understand, right? I mean, .terraform files are the input files for your Terraform workflow. Terraform init, validate, plan, and apply. All these things will read .tf files. Okay. So in order to create resources in AWS Cloud, your code is ready in your GitLab. And you're using Git Bash to create resources in AWS Cloud. What is the command that you will run? On your, where you have .terraform files, you will do a CD to this particular file folder, and then do a Terraform init. Then you go further and do a plan and apply. Is that workflow clear to everyone?
Yeah, Shankar.
Okay. So we'll be doing, first thing is your .terraform files creation and manual execution and resources created in AWS Cloud. So one thing which is very important here is the execution is on Git Bash, and there is something called state file. That is nothing but the resources that are getting created in AWS is referred or is generating a state file with all the resource information, whatever is created in the apply stage. Whatever is created in the apply stage, it creates a state file. It puts all the information into the state file so that it has the history. What history? How many resources added, how many resources removed, modified, whatever. So all that information is stored in the state file. State file is a history of the modifications, creations, deletions in your cloud.
And where the state file will be stored, Shankar?
For the manual execution, it is on the local folder. Okay. It will be terraform.tf state file. Terraform.tf state file. You will be able to identify this file in your directory when you run Terraform init, plan, and apply. Any questions before we move on?
No, Shankar.
No,
Yeah.
No, Shankar.
Okay. Atulya, you're clear about it, right?
Yes.
Okay. So when it comes to automated execution, automated execution is nothing but CI/CD. You will be running your pipeline. The pipeline will be running on GitLab server. Is there any doubts on this particular part? Since I'm going to explain one more thing on this, I want you to be very clear on this one. When you run your CI/CD pipeline, the Terraform workflow will be running on GitLab server. It will be running on the GitLab server. When you run it manually, where it is getting executed? Git bash on your local machine. So when you run it on your GitLab server, say after you push your code to GitLab, this GitLab server takes care of running the stages, running the workflow. What it is supposed to do is, it is supposed to reserve a mission. It is supposed to reserve a mission to run the pipeline, to run the jobs. So what happens when it reserves a mission? There are options. It can reserve a mission something like EC2 or run containers like Docker. This is nothing but your Git bash on your remote server. So we usually go for two things. That is, there are two things here: GitLab runner and GitLab executor. GitLab runner takes care of reading your file like .gitlab CIML file and start the pipeline. Whereas GitLab executor takes care of executing the stages. So GitLab executor is nothing but Docker executor in our case. Any doubts? Any clarity required on this? Is everybody clear on this particular explanation? Don't be so silent. I want some input.
Yes, Shankar, it's clear.
You may have
Clear, sir.
for sure. Okay, yeah. Go ahead with your questions, please.
No, I said clear, sir.
Clear. Okay. So when it is running on CI/CD, when it is running CI/CD for Terraform, the executor is not git bash. Okay. As soon as you push the code, your git bash not even required, because this push will be running. This push will be going to the GitLab server, because you have the .gitlab ci YML file configured already. That takes care of running it on the GitLab server. So it will use GitLab runner and read the .gitlab ci YML file and go through the different stages, and GitLab executor will be given further control to execute each and every job and each and every stage. Okay. Now, what we will do is we'll have further introduction about Terraform code blocks. Okay. So what are the Terraform code blocks that are required to create resources? What is the most fundamental block which is required in order to connect to the cloud? Apart from the authentication, like your access key and secret key, what is the other thing required? Some guesses? I already explained you. We require a provider block. In the provider block, we'll say AWS Cloud. Any doubts on this?
No.
No, sir.
No, Shankar,
Okay.
fine.
Without a provider block, you will not be able to connect to any cloud. It could be your AWS cloud, or it could be your Azure cloud, or it could be your GCP cloud. At what stage the provider block is referred? At what stage the provider block is referred? In the init stage. Init stage reads the provider block and installs plugins required to be connected to AWS cloud. In our case, it is AWS. So it creates a .terraform folder. What is .terraform? What is hidden? All the software related files folders are dot. With the dot it starts. So for SSH it is .ssh. For Git it is .git. For AWS it is AWS CLI. .aws. So .aws, .ssh, you can see it in your home directory. If you do ls-al tilt/, you will see the .ssh and .aws folders. Whereas in your Terraform local file system, if you do a ls-al, you will see .terraform. So in your Git repository on the local, if you do ls-al, you will see .git folder. Okay. Any more explanation required for this?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Sure. So the next most important block is to create resources. Resource block. Okay. In order to fetch information from existing resources, if you want to put full information, that is data block. If you want to show the output of whatever you are creating, that is the output block. If you want to create a variable and use it inside your code, you have to write variable block. These are all the most fundamental blocks that are required to write your Terraform code. Write a Terraform code and create resources in cloud. Okay, with that, I'll stop today's session.